How's it going, YouTube? My name is Caffeinated Mike, and I am here with Anne and Sarah. And they're wonderful people. And this is the first segment of my YouTube channel called Stranger Thaaangs.
I didn't know that was called amazing.
What do you think?
No, I love it. I'm a fan.
Thank you. So the concept of Stranger Thaaangs is we're going to be talking about weird stuff. Because I find weird stuff fascinating.
Oh, me too.
And I think if there are more weird things, the world will be more fascinating.
I mean.
So let's talk about it, because there are things that people don't know about, which could be really fun to hear. And Anne, oh my gosh, she's so cool. I just met her this year. Mm-hmm. And I found out she knows a lot about cults.
I really like cults. Cults is one of my passions.
Yes. So
one of my many passions, along with serial killers. I mean, kidnappings, you know.
Yeah. You can't like one and not the other.
Oh, so the first time I met you,
mm-hmm.
we were talking about cults for a long time.
Yeah.
And it was so fun. And you guys need to hear this stuff because, damn, it's good. So, do you have one that you want to talk about today?
Yes, I do. One of my top favorite cults, it's not my very favorite cult, which would be Scientology, but everybody talks about Scientology. Scientology has been done.
Right.
This one is called Aum Shinrikyo, which is a big cult from the 1980s to 1990s. It stopped sort of in 1996, although apparently it's still going, but...
oh wow.
Those are my favorite ones.
Yes.
No, I know. Secretly. But like apparently it broke up, and then one of them is like a terrorist organization, and then the other one is not anymore. Sure. But like it doesn't have the cult leader, so like it barely counts. Okay. Anyway, but this is talking about Aum Shinrikyo, which means Om Supreme Truth in English. Yes. So it was started in Japan by a man named Chizuo Masamoto. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Anyway, cool name. He is a guy in Japan. He's Japanese. He is blind. Mostly blind. Like, somewhat blind. So, I think he went blind later on in life. He did not start blind. So, anyway, his parents put him in a blind school when he was young. And because he was less blind than all the other blind people, he, like, just, like, completely bullied them and took over and was, like, crazy. And he was like, oh, I love this. I can, like... you know, control everybody in my life. So he was like, that sounds good. And then he didn't get into university. And so he was going to be an acupuncturist at some point, and then I don't know what happened. Anyway, he got really into yoga. And then, but he was also a real big nerd.
Okay.
So he posted a picture in the Twilight Zone magazine in Japan of him doing, so he could do this thing because he was good at yoga, where he would cross his legs and then like flex really intensely and physically jump up in the air.
like a grasshopper?
I guess, except fully cross-legged. Like he looks like he's floating is the idea. That's how he got people. Although he looks quite straight. You guys should look at him. Anyway, so he posts this picture, and also important fact, he's like really into Nostradamus. Like Nostradamus is his guy.
Sure.
And maybe some other people, but mostly Nostradamus. So he gets really into the idea of like the apocalypse and like end of the world. That sort of idea, and he so at around this point he also changes his name to Shoko Asahara, which is apparently a much cooler name. I mean, it's all the same to me, to be honest, but this is his really cool cult name that he starts. So he starts this cult, and at some point, I'm a little hazy about the details, to be honest, but that's fine. He goes to like a field or a meadow or something, and he has this like moment where he like decides basically that the end of the world is going to happen late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, and that it's going to be an Armageddon, and kind of the way that that's going to work out is that there's going to be like World War III, and it's going to be blamed on the Americans. It's a whole thing. I think he may have come up with this idea over time. But anyway, this is his general principle.
Okay. And
so he has these cult followers, and he does like really crazy stuff to them. That's the best part. Well, spoilers! He does some crazy shit. So he does this thing where he like only feeds them like this like shitty stew, which is like vegetable stew. Oh no, okay, you know what the best part is? That since he is a classic cult leader and is mostly in it for the money, he does this thing where he sells all of his cult leaders this like miracle water thing. It's called something pond, I don't remember. Anyway, basically it's his bath water. Oh yeah. So like, and the idea is that you're supposed to drink it, like obviously, so that's gross. So he has this helmet perpetual something initiation. Doesn't matter. Anyway, it is this like helmet thing. You can kind of imagine like Doc Brown. That's what I imagine.
Okay.
That's always what I imagine.
But it has all these like electrodes. And they're supposed to be at like a certain wavelength that would then make your brain waves at the same level as the guru is the idea.
Okay.
But like, you know, probably not good for you.
I mean,
also, like, he gave it to like children did it. Yeah, there's like kids in this book. It's a little sad.
No.
But they I think apparently it was at a lower frequency is what I understand.
Okay, well,
so it's probably
safety first, kids.
He also like was really into like torturing his like cult followers if like they tried to leave. I only heard this information in like one documentary, so I'm like a little dicey about it, but it was like a BBC documentary. Anyway, apparently he made his followers like wear masks of his face. So that's kind of fun.
Yeah. Like a mask like that.
Similar.
Or like
yeah.
that. Those are pillows, but we can pretend they're masks. Okay,
you guys are the real cult leaders. Yeah, so anyway, so his big thing was the end of the world, and so he wanted to start this World War III, so he started like stockpiling weapons. And he bought like a helicopter from the Russians, but apparently like none of his people knew how to like fly helicopters, so it just kind of hung out. But you know, he had one
before Amazon. How do you just write a letter?
Yeah, I mean, I
like how who do you have to know to get a helicopter?
Apparently the Russians.
have
I mean,
the stuff.
but like, do you just call like information in Moscow and like, hey, I need you to direct me to the Go Auto for for helicopters?
They have cheap helicopters.
Pre-owned, gently used. So inspected. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We've got millions.
I'm honestly a little dicey on the details, but that sounds great. Let's go with
That's
that.
Okay, yeah. Helicopter, they can fly it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. He also like had like a bunch of weapons, big weapons stockpiling.
Like bazookas?
You know, I do not know
that's
the
fine.
specifics.
Big weapons.
I was reading, I think on Wikipedia, that he tried to make like automatic rifles. Like he wanted to. Important fact.
Yeah.
He like really targeted like really smart people. So he had some of like Japan's best like scientists and engineers and all these people. So like, yeah. So he was getting like his followers to create these things. And like he could do a lot because he had also like really wealthy people. So like at a time like Aum Shinrikyo had like literally like thousands and thousands of members and billions of dollars.
Wow.
What I'm hearing is stay out of school and don't make money. You'll be safe.
Yeah. Just be a guru, man.
Just
find Jesus.
Okay, the camera was shaking because there's a cat right below it.
He doesn't care.
Okay, whatever. The camera didn't fall. We're fine.
Okay, so at some point...
Earthquakes.
At some point, he decides that he's going to get into chemical warfare.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so that's like his big thing.
He's
and
escalating.
Yeah, for sure.
Look at you knowing terms and stuff. High five.
So he, but like apparently chemical warfare is like really difficult. So he's getting his like scientists to try and create these different like chemical things. Doesn't matter. Anyway, he goes through a few because he's like not so good at it. So he tries to give everybody botulism at some point, and that didn't work, or it didn't work well. I don't know. But anyway, he eventually lands on sarin gas. Which is pretty intense. So, and he manages to weaponize it, which is the big one. Yeah. So the big thing that Aum Shinrikyo did that most people know him for would be the 1995 Tokyo metro attacks. Do you guys know about this?
Yes.
I don't remember.
Oh, it's intense.
Okay.
So basically, it's a little dicey about whether he was trying to start this Armageddon thing, this World War III, or at the same time. So he had, at some point, Aum Shinrikyo had gone in with the Yakuza, which are pretty intense.
I know them.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Personally? You got them on the speed dial?
Yo, let me know. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So he, they, like, Aum Shinrikyo basically was, like, one of the world's biggest underground drug trafficker maker people.
Okay.
So, they got wind, basically, that the military and or the police were going to raid their like compounds. So they had a few compounds, but the big one, the main one, was in Tokyo, and that's where he was.
Okay.
So he was like, well, that's not gonna fly. So he basically ordered his scientists to create sarin gas, but like real quick. He's like, do it right now.
Oh.
So they didn't really have enough time, so they kind of So rather than making it like really potent, it was like much less potent. So that's good for Tokyo.
I mean, yeah.
Not great for Aum Shinrikyo, but they aren't the good guys in the story, I suppose. So then he has 5 of his like main guys who are like, so this is the thing with Aum Shinrikyo is there's like 40,000 members worldwide apparently.
Wow.
But he only had like a really inner circle. And similar to like Scientology, for example, it's the inner circle that like the real crazy shit happens because like they're the people that are like in with it. Everybody else just like follows like the weird
rules,
like food things, no sex things, which was another part of Aum Shinrikyo.
We need to talk about that after.
There's like a fun little like ritual thing that they were talking about on this podcast, which I'm obsessed with. Last podcast on the about Aum Shinrikyo, which is amazing. So I will explain that after. But anyway, Sarin attacks. This is the big thing.
Right.
So he got 5 of his members to do this thing where they were gonna go on the Tokyo Metro on 3 different lines, 5 people, 3 different lines, and all of these trains, because the Tokyo Metro is like real good, we're gonna converge on this station at the same time, and it's the station where the police headquarters of Tokyo is. So his idea is like, hey, if I murder all these people, the raid can't happen, which had worked for him in the past because this was actually not his first sarin gas attack.
What?
This is his second, maybe second, but definitely second.
Oh no.
Yeah, so he did a one earlier where he was going to be sued for something. Don't remember, not important. And so he went to this town, which I think is also called Masamoto. It's probably not. Anyway, and he wanted to kill these judges to get out of this lawsuit. But the plan got bungled. Things didn't go well. The wind changed, something like that. But he did kill 8 people and like injure like 500, and like the judges were among the injured, and it worked. He did not get sued.
Wow.
So he's like, this works great.
It really feels like he needed to plan more, because there's a lot of he tried this but it didn't work.
Well, this is the thing, is like apparently they planned everything like meticulously, and he had all like the smartest people in like Japan working for him, and he had like billions of dollars and all these. I just like don't understand. Like things just like didn't go well for him, which is great because if things had gone well, literally like thousands and thousands of people could have died. Like upwards of like 100,000 people. Like think about Tokyo, how many people take that metro every single day.
Yeah, you're right. It's so many people. And Tokyo is amazing. So I'm glad that this guy failed.
He did, sort of. I mean, okay, so things happened, but like not as bad as it could have. So, and he did this right at rush hour. It was like 8 a.m. on like rush hour. On March 20th, 1995. Facts. He was a kid. So they had these 5 people that had these bags with the sarin gas in it and these sharpened umbrellas. And so their idea was at a certain stop, at a certain time, they'd take these bags out of their backpacks, put them on the ground, and then poke them with the umbrellas and then like get So there was like some issues, because there always is with this cult apparently. So one of the guys like had second thoughts and like got off the train and then like got back, but he like did it, so like it didn't go that well. And another guy who was like a doctor who would like do all of these like weird experiments, he was like the Mangala of the Aum Shinrikyo people. He like looked across apparently at this like woman on the train and was like, this lady's definitely gonna die, what am I doing with my life? All these things. But he, also still did it. So they were all like fully brainwashed by Shogo Asahara. So they poke the bags, but they don't poke all the bags. Some of them only get one, some of them fumble, some don't poke it well enough, so like some of the the gas isn't like released that well. Anyway, and then they get out of there. But they all get out of the right spot, they get in their like getaway vehicles, it's all good. So basically this attack, because the sarin was less potent and because they kind of it up, are we allowed to swear on your YouTube channel?
I'm gonna bleep it out.
I'm so sorry.
Some businesses don't like swearing to show ads. That's okay.
I apologize.
Bleeps are good, I can edit.
I will stop swearing from here on out. So 13, I think it was 13, it was 11, 12, or 13. I'm hazy on the details. Only like a few people died. But like over 1,000 people were injured, and some people were like permanently injured. Like again, there's this story about this woman whose contact lenses fused to her eyeballs, which scares me because I wear contacts. And then they had to remove both of her eyes. Yeah. So like things weren't great. Like it was kind of bad, and like there was like chaos for like that day. and then like things were better the next day apparently, but it's fine.
Do you know what the other effects of the sarin gas
like what does it do?
Okay.
Is it poisonous?
Yeah. So what happens is when you start getting the sarin gas, you start coughing, and then you start vomiting. And so like these people in the train cars were like like everywhere, which is pretty yuck. Yeah. And then at some point, if it gets into your bloodstream, you then collapse, and then you're like foaming blood at your mouth, and you die. Is basically what it is. Yeah. Yeah. So it's just like it completely like with your body.
So basically, the people that were really close to the backpacks, those are the people that died.
Totally.
Could have been more.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, if it was more potent, because it goes into the air, right? It evaporates. Yeah. So it was in a liquid form that then would evaporate, and like and it's like quite like it spreads really easily. Yeah. So every time like the train doors opened, it would go into like the train, like so there was.
It would have been more than just the people on the train.
Yeah, that was the idea, is that it could like get into the entire Tokyo system, train system. Yeah. So so then like there's this one story of like a station master who like finds the package. Oh, the other thing is that sarin, apparently when it's like fully potent at 100%, there's no smell, but because it was this less potent version, there's like strong smells associated with it, like mustard or like eggs, something like that.
Eggs?
So yeah, or like no, it was burning rubber, mustard, and rotten onions is the ones that people explain them at.
Weird.
Yeah, so people were like, everybody's freaking out, and there's this really strong smell, so they kind of like were able to manipulate, this is probably happening from the package, but they didn't know what the gas was, what was happening, anything like that. So so there's like the station master who like takes the package and like brings it into his like office to like get it away from the people.
Wow.
And then like obviously him and his person that he was with like died immediately.
That's like it's like a captain on a ship who like sacrifices himself so that his people can get away.
Like, but that's 100% what happened. I mean, I don't think he knew that he was doing that, but sure.
Right. That's so honorable.
Yeah, totally. And he definitely stopped like dozens of people from dying because because that package, it could have like hurt a lot of people if he hadn't taken it away. So so they didn't think that there would be like a chance that this would come back to Aum Shinrikyo, but it immediately came back to Aum Shinrikyo. So but like there were some like issues with like the raid, and because they were so powerful and all this kind of stuff, like basically things were like slow, and they didn't end up actually getting to arrest them until 1996. So that's when Shoko Asahara and like all of his sort of like inner people were arrested, and then they were sentenced to hanging, to death, but they're like still kicking, they're just like in jail.
They're just chilling. Yeah,
but apparently Asahara like went mental in like in prison, and I forgot a very important fact. One thing about this cult is that like they were really into drugs. So Asahara was taking an insane amount of LSD this entire time.
Wow.
And all of his inner people. So like when he was having all these things about the end of the world and like the fact that he was Jesus, and at some point he thought he was like Shiva, I think. Like there was like a bunch of like, he got some Buddhism in there, some Hinduism in there, like he was like everything. And but he was just like really, really high the whole time. And all of his like main people were. So it kind of makes sense that all these kind of fumbles happen.
Oh, yeah.
So, so that's basically Aum Shinrikyo. They had, and apparently the sarin gas attack was like the biggest terrorist attack
in Japan.
Japan had ever seen, and like
it's not much crime there.
No, not at all. And like it just like completely like it was crazy. And people are like still apparently like feeling the effects, because like it only happened in 1995.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were like permanently messed up by it.
It's not that long ago.
Or lots of PTSD apparently associated with people that were on the train. Seeing all these people, and like apparently things were made a little bit worse with like the spreading of it, because people in Japan are like so like orderly and strict with themselves that a lot of people were like, "Ooh, I'm feeling kind of terrible. I'm gonna go to work anyway." But you bring the gas with you.
No.
So like they were spreading it a lot more than it would have. But
they didn't know.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
they
just
had no
trying
idea.
To be a good worker.
Well, and this is the thing, is that exactly. And like all these hospitals were flooded with people that were having these symptoms, but they didn't know what it was caused, because it wasn't like a bomb or something obvious.
Yes.
It was this like silent vomiting. Killer.
Yeah,
exactly.
Vomiting.
Totally. So it took like a long time for them to figure out like this is sarin gas, and there is an antidote for sarin gas. So that's how the 5 people, like it wasn't like a suicide mission or anything like that. They left, and then they like cleaned off their umbrellas and took like they could take an antidote, so they were all fine.
Wow.
Only one guy even had like symptoms of it apparently.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, that is Aum Shinrikyo.
Wow.
Fully crazy.
So can you? I don't know if you probably know this, but like how did he brainwash the people? Like, did he introduce them to drugs and be like, and then they were like, whoa, this is like mad
there
stuff.
was, yeah.
This guy's amazing. He's providing this to us.
Yeah, I've always wondered, like, how you decide to start something like that and then get everybody in on the ground floor to be just that first group of people where you have to convince them that you're it.
I mean, getting into the psychology of why people join cults is like really complicated, obviously.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was aspects like, you know, there were people targeted in society that were like, you know, questioning, that were lost, that were wondering. And apparently this was like a really opportune time in Japan because of the effects of World War II and the completely changing of their culture, how there was no longer an emperor. Like there was a lot of things happening with religion at that time and westernization and all these things that it kind of created this vacuum where like people were looking for other things, were looking outward and were trying to like get away from like the commercialism, because he was very anti like possessions and like, you know, and like he like brought these people into like a commune, and he like
so he brought them together and he was constantly with them. Okay, I see.
Yeah, and you immediately like separate these people from their families, right? And there was a big drug element. So like if there was people that were like questioning it or whatever, there would be doctors that would give them these things, and then they'd have these moments, and then they believe. And there was like a lot of meditation, and like apparently he was like a very charismatic leader. Yeah. So there's a lots of reasons. I don't know why it got so big or why it got so like ingrained, but I mean it's the same thing with lots of cults. Like why would they believe that crazy?
Right.
It's wild to go back and trace back to when he was in school and was so manipulative and
so
controlling from such a young age.
Yes.
So wild.
Yeah, he was absolutely a psychopath. I was watching, there's this amazing show called Most Evil. If you guys have not watched it, I highly recommend it. It's the greatest.
I'll check it out.
There's this doctor guy, I don't know what his name is. He has a scale of evil, which is the greatest. It's an amazing show, guys. Yeah. I think the scale goes to 22 is my understanding.
So did he talk about this?
He sure did.
Yes.
Well, he talked specifically about Shoko Asahara. Okay. And Shoko Asahara was only a 16 on his scale of evil.
So there's
That's
more.
Still pretty high.
Yeah. Like, I mean, 22, like, people like Bernardo or Bundy, those people are number 22.
Yeah, I mean.
Because Shoko Asahara was a psychopath and clearly had, like, he says that because there's a mental illness aspect to it and the drug aspect, he's not as evil as he could be.
Oh, I see.
Which is a little questionable to me.
Right. Interesting.
Anyway.
Okay, I'll check that out, yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Cool.
It's a great show, guys.
I mean, just to have that scale.
I know.
It's awesome.
A scale of evil, yeah. It's
and
perfect.
to have all these things that you know so much about and to be able to compare.
Yes.
Oh, it's fun.
For this to be like one of your favorite ones, to have it be all the way up at a 16. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Can you quickly talk about why he didn't allow people to have sex?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I don't know I think the reason why he stopped people stopped allowing people to have sex was more of a control thing, and and his beliefs sort of changed over time, because at the beginning of the cult he had this ritual which was supposed to make you magical, basically, like you're supposed to give you magical powers, and this is the ritual. Can we get into this?
If you can talk it. If you can explain it kind of quickly, we're getting a bit long, but I'd love to hear it. It's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. I find this fascinating. So.
Okay, so basically, it was this ritual where you would masturbate but not come for and do this over several days. So edging for a long time. Yeah. Until you're at a point, right? And then after that, you have sex, but you do this weird muscle thing. So and you have to do it in an exact sequence. Like you thrust a certain amount of times, and then you do the muscle thing a certain amount of times. And apparently, it's supposed to bring you to this higher magical thing. And this was 100% one of his doctrines. Whoa. So he. Yeah, so he started being kind of sex positive in a certain really specific weird way. Right. But then after that, it was no sex. But obviously, he had a lot of sex. He had a bunch of wives and a bunch of children.
What a hypocrite.
He also ate a lot of food, whereas if you see, he's quite thin at the beginning of the cult, and by the end, he's not at all. Yeah. So all of his followers are starving and going through all of this, and he's just eating, and he's a full he's intense. Yeah.
Crazy.
Also, sorry, one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
The way that he would kill people, and so apparently he killed they think dozens of his own followers. He only killed a few people outside of the cult, but his followers all the time, and they would do this thing where they would it was this microwave incinerator. What? So there was these barrels, and they would microwave the people in the barrels with this I think there was some sort of chemicals involved as well, but basically they would crust onto the outside of the barrel and scrape it. Aum Shinrikyo.
Was it a punishment to have to be the one to scrape?
You know what? I don't know. I would love to know that.
Push the popcorn button.
Or is it an honor?
3 minutes.
It could be. I mean, like that they would do like literally anything that they.
God.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cults, man. Cults.
Yeah. Thank you so much for telling
no
us
problem.
and you guys. I hope you found that as awesome as I did. Like, it's terrible what he did, but...
Yeah, it's terrible.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Horrible and fascinating.
Yeah, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. I enjoyed it.
Cool. If you guys like the Stranger Thaaangs thing, let me know.
With no Dustin.
And, yes.
Screw you, Steve.
We're not affiliated. Let me know, and maybe we could talk more about this stuff.
Yeah, I know about lots of cults, and serial killers, and other terrible things. So, let me know.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds good. All right, guys, have a great day. Subscribe if you want. I think you should. Do what you want. Bye.